Let me give you another example. I was just watching America's Most Wanted the other night, maybe a week or two ago with my roommate. There was this girl on there, and she was 8 years old at the time, who this guy broke into her room while she was sleeping, took her out in the car, secluded area, raped her, and ended up slashing her throat and leaving her for dead. She ended up surviving, and they interviewed her, and you can see like a scar on her throat, and they show what she does today. And she ended up using this experience to help others, like things like self-defense and just education. And she's also looking for the guy who did this, and to bring him to justice, to make sure that he can't do this to anybody else. But are all of these things that she does today after this experience, are these reasons that this should have happened to her? Do these things really justify what she went through? I don't think so. And give me 1 second here. I think you mentioned how this could be shown to be not objectively wrong if somewhere in some way that the person who does this has this little gem of of intent in their mind, like, I'm doing this to benefit the child, so later on they could grow and learn from this. No one molests a child to benefit the well-being of the child. They molest a child to benefit themselves and what they want out of that child. Even so, if I grant that someone somewhere has this reason that you kind of mention in mind, it's completely ludicrous. It's irrational. The reason I'm saying that is if they're so concerned with the child's well-being, there are a myriad of other appropriate ways to build character in the face of adversity as a responsible adult or parent, if that was truly their concern. Even if you wanted them to have understanding of being a sexual assault victim or to learn from that sort of thing, you can let them learn from people who have gone through such things. You can put them in a self-defense course. You can educate them. Anything but molesting them to, teach them this. That makes no sense. And then I want to get into the drunk driving thing. A couple things on this. I never said drunk driving was objectively wrong, and it really wasn't the topic of the conversation. I didn't really get into all that it entails. I used it as an example to support what I was saying about child molestation. That was it. I didn't really try to open it up as a topic of conversation. Your desire to get drunk and behave irresponsibly do not justify, in the least, your killing or harming people on the highways, or potentially killing or harming them. It just doesn't justify it, and that's the reason I brought that up as an example. It was just an everyday example. I didn't want to open a can of worms on that. You mentioned that we take risks by driving on the road to begin with. Well, that's an altogether different thing than what I'm talking about. There's a difference between willfully putting ourselves and others at risk, willful negligence, and unforeseen circumstances. If getting in the road and driving is such a risk, or if it's willful negligence, then why do we have speed limits? Why do we have seatbelts? Why do we have rules of the road? This is completely different than getting in the car drunk and being willfully negligent and putting yourself at risk. You're not doing all that you can to remove yourself from harming somebody. You're actually increasing the odds of harming someone else. That's the major difference. So that to say that getting in our cars and just driving to get milk, while there may be a possibility we could hurt someone in the process, is the same thing as getting drunk and driving. That's not true. And you mentioned something about intent in regards to drunk driving. Again, it's not about intending to kill somebody. It's about willfully putting yourself and others at risk. You don't have to intend on killing or murdering somebody for drunk driving to be wrong. It's wrong because it's just negligent. It's just irresponsible behavior. That's why it's wrong, and that's why it's illegal. If it were the case that we looked at drunk drivers, all of them having the intent to kill people, they'd be going to death row for what they've done. Or they'd be, if you got a DUI, they'd call it attempted murder. But you don't see that. It's basically willful negligence in the most serious sense, of course. So whatever the reason they get into the car drunk, it just doesn't justify taking someone else's life or the potential for that to happen. And that's all I'm saying. Be it that they didn't intend on getting in the car, or we just wanted to get drunk, that doesn't mean we wanted to kill somebody. Whatever reason, it doesn't matter. What I'm saying is it just doesn't justify putting people in risk. And that's all I'm saying. And the example I gave you about subjective morality, all I meant by that was it might be immoral for me and my wife to tell off-color jokes to each other, but to you and your wife, it may not be. What you do in your household is different than what I do in my household, even if we do find reasons for it. It's not like we're not pulling it out of our butts, like you were saying. You could have reasons for not acting that way in your house. But what I'm saying is it's immoral to us, but maybe not to you. I know it's a bad example, but it still kind of gets the point across. That's what I meant by that. That would be subjective morality. It's for us, it's immoral in our household, but for you and your wife, you guys do it. There seems to be no harm in it. So that's what I'm saying. That's subjective morality. And both of these are inconsequential. And they don't parallel to child abuse or child molestation. If it is an inconsequential, like you and your wife telling dirty jokes and me and my wife not, how could it be true, or how could it not be true for everyone to kind of going blank here, sorry. Like I said, this goes back to the bottom line. Show me how pleasure is a sufficient justification for molesting a child. If that is not true, then I could agree with you that this would be subjective. Typically with subjective morality, you can argue both for and against. It's inconsequential in some regards, but in other regards you can argue for and against. And that's what I'm saying. I cannot think of an argument for or pleasure being a sufficient justification. And this is why telling off-color jokes to your wife does not parallel to child molestation, as far as they're both equally subjective. They're not. I just cannot think of a case where this is okay. And if you can, then just let me know. If you can show me how pleasure is a sufficient justification for it, then I'm all ears. And that was my whole point. And I appreciate it, man. And I will see you later, man. Okay. Bye.